what you teach, doesn't matter what people who work for you teach, you still have to offer it and you still have to pay for it, which we simply cannot do. And it is sort of a line in the sand. So 34 lawsuits have been now filed, and I tend to be very hopeful about them because there was a major Supreme Court decision just about a year ago called Hosanna Tabor. Some of you may have heard of it, but it was a lawsuit brought by the EEOC against the Lutheran Church, because the Lutheran Church fired one of its, what it would call, they have a very different structure for us pastorally in terms of how they would view their ministers, quote unquote. But they had a woman who they had trained as a called minister. So she had gone through special training. I guess it would be sort of like a deaconess, I suppose, would be some kind of parallel. And for a particular internal reason, she was let go from the Lutheran school where she taught. And she filed a wrongful discharge claim with the EEOC and said, no, I'm a secular employee, I'm not a minister, because there's a ministerial exception. So the government is not allowed to tell particular religions when they can and cannot dismiss their ministers. So if the cardinal decides to transfer a priest from Holy Name Cathedral to somewhere else, government can't step in and say, no, cardinal, you can't do that. That's wrong. This is the same kind of parallel here. They could not say to the Lutheran Church, you cannot dismiss this particular person, you cannot dismiss this minister. And what the government did, what the EEOC said, was, oh no, she's not really a minister, we'll tell you who's a minister and who's not a minister. You won't tell us, Lutheran Church, we'll tell you. And the Supreme Court said, no, you won't. No, you won't. And it was a 9-0 decision. Okay, so, and the Supreme Court came out very, very strongly in favor of religious liberty, saying those religious liberty, Justice, it was one of the few times I've ever actually burst out laughing reading a Supreme Court decision, because Chief Justice Roberts had a hysterically funny line. It was funny to me anyway, but I find these things funny, where he said, I simply cannot buy the administration's argument that the free exercise and establishment clauses have nothing to do with the Constitution, which is basically what they went in there and argued. So I have great hope, because I think this particular decision and its definitiveness and its unanimity shows that the court is very much aware of any kind of broaching of that First Amendment would have tremendous implications for people of all faiths. And what's been really heartening as we have, for example, gone through that fortnight of freedom that we had in June, from the middle of June to the 4th of July, and as we have had different rallies about religious freedom here in Chicago and elsewhere throughout the nation, is the number of people of other faiths that have come forward to say, we know if they're going to mess with you all, with the influence that you have and the power you have, we're next, and we want to stand with you. I was just at a wonderful conference on Sunday up at Hallis Hall. Mrs. Virginia McCaskey, you may have seen coverage of this in the Tribune. Virginia McCaskey made Hallis Hall available to a number of different people who came in to speak about religious liberty issues, really kind of more from a private business standpoint, because there are some private businesses here in our area, including the company that was voted by Crane Chicago Business, was named the #1 company for women to work for in the Chicago area, is now suing the government over this HHS mandate because it's owned by very, very serious Orthodox Catholics who have never provided that kind of coverage and don't want to provide it for their employees. So they're part of the lawsuit against the government. They don't receive federal funding, and they sponsored this wonderful conference. But at it was an incredibly articulate Muslim attorney, young woman, who spoke about the threats that she feels to her religious liberty and her religious freedom. An Orthodox Jewish rabbi who spoke and gave us reminded us of what can happen when a particular religion is ostracized and its teachings mocked by the government and it's alienated and isolated. He brought that back to us in a very sort of traumatic way. And the people of no faith at all, who simply are adherents to the Constitution and believe in the principles that were articulated by our founding fathers. So, there's a silver lining in every cloud, and we've seen so many wonderful people come together. The evangelical community has been incredibly supportive. Wheaton College is now part of one of the lawsuits, which has been the great training ground for the evangelical pastors throughout the country. So it really has, God can bring this tremendous good out of this kind of evil. And this is a particularly dramatic moment, I think, for the church, because we really stand to lose so much in this if this does not go our way and we don't prevail. So I would ask for your prayers, and I would appreciate and be happy to take any of the comments or questions that you have.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Oh.